Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the New Construction Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Anya Chrysanthon, and I'm very excited for our guest for today. Her name is Kathy Tucker with Kathy Tucker Coaching and Consulting. So welcome to the show, Kathy.
Thank you very much, Anya. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Of course, yes. So I've been meaning to have you on for a long time, and it's been we've both been busy. So
Yes.
finally, we made it happen.
Yes.
So Kathy, we like to start off things by giving everyone a kind of a background information on who Kathy is, what your journey through the home building industry has been, how you got into it, your progression through the career, and kind of what is it that you do now.
Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you. Well, I'll share a little bit about my journey. So I started at a very young age and started selling homes, and I worked for a national home builder. In my first year, I sold over 100 homes.
Whoa!
Yeah,
That's crazy.
It really was. It was a great opportunity, but ultimately, I loved what I was doing. And most people at the time were selling about 40, between 35 and 45. So I really did go above and beyond. And it was really because I loved it. I was very passionate about it. So anyway, I went from working in a sales role to eventually, moving up the corporate ladder. I was a sales trainer for a few years. I wrote sales training workshops and did one-on-one training with salespeople. Then I moved into sales management at a time when there weren't a lot of sales managers, and I had to learn a lot of stuff kind of from the School of Hard Knocks. And I also had a couple really good mentors, and they helped me along the way. I went from sales management and really wanted to move up the corporate ladder. So I had a variety of roles where I was regional sales and marketing manager, general manager of operations. Eventually, I moved up to a role of division president, where I had a division myself that I started and operated for several years. So it was a 30-year run from sales to division president, and it was a great run. But at the end, I decided, as much as I love this, I looked at my career and realized, it's time to do something different. And the part that I really loved the most was helping to develop salespeople and sales managers. So that's just where I got the most gratification, Anya. So I said, okay, so I left corporate and ended up down here in Florida. I'm in Sarasota, Florida, and I started my own business of Kathy Tucker Coaching and Consulting. And really what I'm doing now is I'm doing sales training workshops with some builders, and then I'm also doing sales management training. And in both cases, I'm also offering one-on-one coaching and doing some masterminds. So it's really fun because I'm able to really work on the areas that I'm truly passionate about, and that is, like I said, developing people, be it salespeople or sales managers, and helping them be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kathy, I think most sales, or at least I guess depending on which company you work for, most national builders are pretty good about training their salespeople. Mm-hmm. So usually you do see various coaches coming through, or at least once a year you have somebody coming in doing some type of presentation to help salespeople get better. Right. But I feel like in the sales manager role, usually the way you get to a sales manager is by being a really good salesperson.
You're right.
So you're a really good salesperson, and then naturally it's like, okay, well, let's put you in a leadership position.
You're right.
And now that is a completely different skill set from selling to managing people.
Yes.
And I feel like you really don't get a whole lot of training in that area as a sales.
You're absolutely right. Yep. You're absolutely right.
So then you kind of have to figure it out on your own. Okay, so I know how to sell homes, but how do I actually coach my team? How do I encourage them? How do I be a great sales leader?
Yeah.
So what we wanted to talk today about is kind of Kathy's going to give us an overview of 6 best practices for developing high-performing crew. So if you are in a sales management role, maybe you're new to the role, or maybe you've been in a role, but we can always use a reminder. And if you're in sales, this will also resonate with you, because we're going to talk about some of the things that could make you better salesperson. Before we jump into it, so I'm curious. So you said that your first year you sold over 100 homes.
Yep.
How did you do it?
You know, that's a great question. I was in a community up in Northern Virginia, and there was, it was a community where they had a lot of inventory. And the person who was there before me, who was a veteran salesperson, was struggling and sold about 1 home a month.
Wow.
Well, I learned, through the company I was working with, I learned, really how to sell. And my style was to be very consultative. It was to really learn what the customer was interested in, what pains they had, what they really wanted, and then just to move them through the process. And I really attribute my success to learning selling skills, which I didn't really realize that I had, but I learned them. And then being very driven and goal-oriented, being very optimistic, and just having a focus and a drive to achieve the results. So I think it's just a lot of my makeup, and I worked my butt off, but I loved it. I really enjoyed it.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's the way to start your sales career, sell 100 homes in a year. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I was fortunate because I had the traffic. Not in all communities do you have the traffic walking in the door. In this particular community, I have to admit, the traffic was walking in the door. So it was really up to me to figure out, what they wanted and work them through the process and close them. And so, that's what I did. And I also think that when you work in communities where you have a lot of traffic, you have more opportunity to learn more quickly.
Yes.
Because you work more people. And that was the situation I was in. But yeah, it was a great opportunity.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let's jump into our topic for today. So we have our six best practices of high-performing sales managers. So first, let's see. We have number 1 is to hire the best and the brightest.
Right.
Easier said than done.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And, I thank you for us even talking about this, because you did say something and I just kind of wanted to go back to it for a second. A lot of new sales managers are exactly like you said. They're top producers. Mm-hmm. They're the people who've been out in the field selling really well, and suddenly they're promoted to becoming a sales manager, oftentimes, managing their peers or managing another division that they also knew. Maybe they were one step removed from them. And what I have seen is that so often they are so good at the sales job that they come into the sales manager role and they start to struggle. And the problem is they're such successful people that it's really hard for them, because then they start feeling like a failure, but it's not their fault. Because one of the things I always teach is that in a different situation, whenever you go to a different situation, it requires different skills and different talents. So for these folks, they need to just have the opportunity for somebody to guide them and coach them. And like you said, not all, even the large builders, but the large builders and the small builders oftentimes don't have the training programs together. Oftentimes the person who's the division manager or who they report to don't have the time, or sometimes they don't have the expertise, so it really, so anyway, I really am excited about what I'm doing, because I've seen some people get some great results. So anyway, thank you for allowing us to share this. So yes, the first part is to hire the best and the brightest. And we've all heard the saying, surround yourself with experts, right? Mm-hmm. And it's no different when you're a sales leader. You want to hire the best and the brightest. There's absolutely no substitute for a team stacked with talent. And what I share with people is there's 5 characteristics that I always looked for, that what I saw they produce the best salespeople. And a lot of people look for experience. Experience is good, but to me, experience was not everything, Anya. I looked for people, first of all, who are high drive. Mm-hmm. These are the people that have an innate desire to win, and we can't teach that.
I agree with you.
You just can't teach it.
I was laughing yesterday, and I wanted to share this on social media. I was like, I don't want to brag, but do you know the card game? Is it Remy?
No.
Remy? No. So when we were in California on vacation.
Oh, Rummy. Gin Rummy.
Rummy. Yes. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
So Rummy. Okay. So I've never played the game before in my life, and when we were in California, we were vacationing with another couple. And so on our kind of during the daytime, it was so nice to sit outside, have some wine. And so we decided to play the game. So they taught me how to play. And I whooped everyone's butts. I was reigning champion. So yesterday, we've been telling our 7-year-old twins that we're going to teach them how to play this game. It'd be fun. Yeah. And so yesterday, once again, mommy was the champion. Yeah. And I was just laughing to myself because I'm oh my God, it's a stupid game, but I'm so, competitive to win this thing.
That's part of what it is. Yeah, that's the drive. You're absolutely right.
It's oh.
And it's innate. You can't help it, right? You can't help it. It's who you are. And that's what I like to look for is those people who love a challenge. They like to win. They're driven to win. So that's one of the first things I look for. The other thing is results orientation. They're similar, but they're different. The results orientation, those are the people who are the closers. Mm-hmm. They'll use a process to get to the close, but they don't get stuck in the process. So it's the people who really want the results, and so that's they're acutely. What I always say is they're acutely focused on those income producing activities that will get them results. So they get rid of all the other stuff that drags them down and wastes their time. They're focused on results. So that's the other thing. And so it's drive, it's results. The other big area I look for is problem solving. Mm-hmm. You could teach a little bit of problem solving, but ultimately, the best problem solvers are curious and they just want to ask questions because they're trying to solve the problem. And you and I both know sales is about problem solving.
Oh, especially new construction. There's a lot of problems that you need to solve.
Exactly. Lots of problems. And also their situation, they have, in buying a home, they have so many different alternatives. And in new homes, you want to help them, solve their problem with your community being the answer, right? So it's really about problem solving. So that's a key element. And then two other elements that I think, again, you can't teach. One is optimism. Sales, we all know sales has its ups and downs and its challenges and obstacles, and we get lots of no's. The optimistic people are able to be more resilient and just move on. And that's key.
I agree with you. I think you cannot be in sales if you have a negative outlook on life. It's just...
You can't be. So optimistic. And that's also something that I can't teach somebody. People can make some changes in themselves if they want to, but as a manager, I can only do so much, right? So I like to hire optimistic people. And the last thing, again, is one of those things that's a soft skill. I like to hire people who are likable, people who you want to have a chat with, people who care about other people and connect. Those likable people, they sell more homes than anybody else because people will sit down, have coffee, and tell them their life story, and so that's really important. So those are the 5 areas that I look for, high drive, results orientation, problem solving, optimism, and likability. They're all, they're probably all equally important, but that's what I look for. And experience is good, like I said, but not absolutely necessary.
Yeah, and sometimes it's actually worse to have an experienced salesperson because they come with bad habits. Mm-hmm. So it's easier to, as long as they have the right attitude, it's easier to train. Right?
Yes, that's what I've always thought. Now, I will say that I have met very experienced people who have all these same qualities, and they're golden.
Of course.
Especially if they're adaptable and willing to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Those are very valuable salespeople. But you know what? You don't. They're not as. There's not as many of them out there.
Yes. Yes. Sales, unfortunately, it's you burn out at some point, so it can burn out. So,
right.
All right. So speaking of being able to train somebody, and number 2 on our list is to invest in training and development.
Yep. Yeah, what I say on that is as a practice for great sales managers, they invest in training and coaching and development all the time. And it doesn't matter whether it's your newbie and you're teaching them the processes, or whether it's your veteran. Now you want veterans who are open to learning, but sometimes veterans get rusty. So it's really important to keep them sharp. And we all know the more you sharpen your axe, the stronger you are. And it's just so valuable. And I think that by keeping everybody's skills sharp, not only does it make them better salespeople, but it's also motivating. They go into a sales training and they remember something they learned a long time ago, but they haven't been using it, and now they have something new to try. The great salespeople embrace learning and want to go out there and implement what they learned. And it's, like I said, it's motivating.
I agree with you. So I think that's one thing I always pride myself in, is that I constantly learn. And I think if you enjoy learning, then home building industry is perfect field for you, because things always change.
I agree.
Like the way the customer expectations are,
yes.
Mortgage aspects, even the building process. So there's constantly something new. So you always have to stay on your toes to kind of be on top of it. So
think too that, you may sell in one neighborhood and then you're moved to another neighborhood.
Oh, absolutely.
So, there's a big change. You might go from, a first-time buyer to an empty nester buyer. Well, you need to change your process a little bit. It's different, and and also you got to learn all the idiosyncrasies about the product and the community. So even a fully experienced salesperson who goes from one neighborhood to another is now in a totally different situation, and needs to learn some more, and needs a different type of management and coaching style, because they're in a different situation.
Absolutely. And if your company is not providing coaching or training, there's a ton of online resources available that you can always find. Even if you go to YouTube, just search sales training, there's a lot of information out there. And especially with how much driving we do between the model homes, that's a perfect opportunity to turn on your, a podcast, right? There's so many podcasts out there that will teach you sales training. So it's definitely, there's no shortage of it, for sure.
Right. I agree. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So next thing is master the skill of competitive community positioning.
So one of the things I always say to the sales managers is, you can hire the best salespeople, but if you put them in a situation where your community is not priced right or positioned appropriately, you're setting them up to fail. That doesn't mean they can't get some sales, but they're not going to be able to maximize the opportunity. And as builders, we want to maximize every opportunity we can, whether it's volume, whether it's profit, or whether it's a combination thereof. And so it's absolutely critical to set the community up and position it well against its competition, so that it has its niche in the marketplace, it has its unique value proposition, and the salesperson is set up for success. And the way I look at that is, that's the sales manager's responsibility to set up the community for success. Now, once it's set up and the salesperson is there and they're operating, then it's the salesperson's responsibility to communicate to the sales manager about what's changing in the marketplace, what's changing with the competition and the buyers, and then work together and collaborate. But it's truly a skill to position your communities for success. And and it's not a one-time thing, because things change and you have to reposition. So that's something that I like to really hone in on with the sales managers with whom I work, and help them understand what data is available out there, how to analyze it, and how to set themselves up to really maximize what the goal is of the company. Sometimes the company's goal is absorption. Sometimes it's profit. So it just depends on what they're trying to accomplish, and you position it appropriately.
Yeah, I think a lot of salespeople have such an anxiety over word like community audit. But I remember I was always excited whenever, like if I was in a community and it was getting audited, I was like, hallelujah, please. Obviously something's not working, and let's figure it out. Let's put our brains together and figure out what it is that we need to change, tweak, to make sure that, because you knew after that it was like, whoo.
Exactly. And then everybody wins. Yes. And that's the key, is the best sales managers make sure that all their communities are positioned competitively and well, so that everybody wins. The company wins and the salesperson wins. Everybody wins.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Love that. All right. So next thing is to create a motivating culture. How do we do that?
So I love this one. And some people say to me, Anya, well, if you've got motivated salespeople, if they're innately motivated, why do you need to worry about taking the extra time and effort to create a motivating culture? And, I say, well, yes, they're motivated and they're going to produce. But watch what happens when they're motivated as a team. Amazing things can happen, and the results can be far more than what you ever thought. And so what I talk about is two things. One is, as a manager, we need to help the salespeople understand why it's important that they hit these numbers, and that there's more people's lives at stake. Then they understand their purpose, more than just I have a goal or I need to make X number of dollars. It's how is this impacting the rest of the division and the company? And I think that's important, whether it's a small company especially, or even a large company, because it impacts so many different people. And what I have seen is when you help the salespeople understand the impact they have on the rest of the team from a broader perspective, you see them work a little bit harder, because ultimately they want to make you happy. So one is to help them understand the purpose that's bigger than just a number. And then the other thing is, when they do perform, you thank them. You really show appreciation. Sometimes it's in public. Sometimes it's a thank you note. Sometimes it's a phone call. Everybody's different in what kind of appreciation really motivates them. But when you show everybody that you appreciate what they do, even if you appreciate the fact that maybe they didn't get the goal yet, but they're doing all the right activities to get to the goal, that's motivating in and of itself, because now the salesperson realizes, hey, my boss realizes I'm working and that I'm on the right track. And you know what? That's good. And then they make that extra phone call, So I truly believe that there's lots. That's just a couple things that I recommend, but those are two of the top things, is make sure they understand the bigger picture and the purpose, and then appreciate them for what they do.
I always joke that salespeople will work for recognition. Yes. It's like, obviously we all love money, but like, if you're going to recognize me with some award or something where, you'll get to say how great I am, it's like, hey, I'm all for it.
Well, right? Yeah, that's why ranking people in lists really is great for some people, and the top 10% club, and all of that kind of stuff. It all creates a motivating culture, and it also helps you. It helps keep. Well, not only does it create a motivating culture, but it holds people accountable. And that's part of it too.
And I'm sure it's probably tricky to kind of strike a right balance between creating that motivating culture and not make it competitive. Obviously you want it to be competitive amongst the salespeople, but not to the point where it's like cutthroat, where it becomes like, oh, I don't care about you, or like I have a prospect come in and didn't work out, so instead of like sending them to this community because it would be perfect community for them,
Right. Right, you need a healthy competition.
Yes.
And it's like in sports, when you have a team and everybody is still cheering each other on, that's the type of culture you want to create. That doesn't mean that I don't want to be number one or number two, out of all of the salespeople. I want to be up there. I want to be ranked number one, but I also want the company to win. And I want the team to win, which is part of why you want to make sure that they understand the bigger purpose and that it's not necessarily always all about them. It's ultimately about the company and about the team. And part of that is how you recognize them. And sometimes you recognize, the number of sales. Other times you recognize the profitability, or you recognize, the customer service or the hand money percentage. There's all different areas that people can be great at, and truthfully, most salespeople are not great at everything, so, but anyway.
Paperwork. That's how you know you have a good salesperson in your hands. Bad paperwork.
Well, that is inherent in a lot of salespeople, but I know a lot of great ones who are good at paperwork.
True.
And you know what? That also helps them with better customer service,
Yeah.
because they have their I's dotted and their T's crossed.
I think that one is hard for everyone.
But it is one of those things. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
All right. So next one we have, number 5, is always be coaching.
Yeah. I think there's teachable moments all the time. And I think that the best sales managers are the ones who get themselves out of the office and into the field so that they can always be coaching. And, always be coaching is a combination of not just criticizing them, but doing a couple things. One is observing them and then seeing them do something right and then telling them about it. I really believe in that, because if you can observe them and watch what a great job they did closing a customer, for example, and then you say, you don't just say, hey, that was great. You say, you know what? That was magnificent. And here's why I liked it so much. You said this, and this is how they responded. Mm-hmm. And you give them very specific details of what they did and what impact it had. Now they realize specifically what they did that was great, and you better believe they're going to remember it again, right? So it's a very important element of coaching, and the other part of coaching is, of course, as you're out there and you're in the field, you can see what processes are working and what processes aren't. And so then as a manager, you can help coach on the process, either make the changes to the process or help the sales agent understand how to use the process, whether it's a contract process, a customer service process, or whatever, in a way that's going to help them be more efficient with their time and ultimately be more successful. So the more time they can spend coaching, the better.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the best qualities of a successful salesperson is if they can be coachable, because I think for many it is difficult almost, especially if you're an experienced salesperson. It's right. Like, it's so easy to have like, oh, I know it all attitude. Right. And the end of the day, you don't know it all. And there are things that we can improve on. And it's so important to be open-minded and to receive that criticism when it's due without putting up the walls, and really, kind of hear it out and see what you could do better. And I think that's very important, the delivery, right?
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I really believe that there's an art to coaching. And I'll tell you, just a quick little digression here. When I started as a sales manager, I made a horrible mistake. Here I was thinking that I was going to show this. So I was trying to prove myself as a manager. And I was working with a brand new salesperson who was demonstrating the model and, doing the whole sales process. and the customer, left. They didn't make a lot reservation or a follow-up appointment or anything. Well, I had been taking all kinds of notes and observing the appointment and taking all kinds of notes. Well, when she finished with the prospect, I proceeded to share with her all, 50 of my notes. And by the time we finished, she was like, her bubble was burst and she was in tears. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what did I just do? Here I am trying to show her how to be great. But then I realized, wait a minute, I was going about it all wrong. And I think that there's a lot to be said about the art of coaching. Mm-hmm. And it's not as simple as it sounds, because especially with salespeople, because salespeople ultimately have somewhat fragile egos. They really do. And a lot of times when you do have seasoned salespeople, they feel like they know what they're doing, and a lot of times they do. And you can help give them some ideas on how they might be able to do it a little bit differently and get a better result. So you do have to navigate that conversation in a way that's going to leave them inspired, mm-hmm. And not feeling like, I don't want to listen, I'm just going to keep doing the same thing. So there's some techniques to that. That's one of the things I coach about, because I know that I've been there, on both sides of that table,
right?
Where I've been the salesperson who has not been so happy with the type of feedback I've been given. And I've also given it in a way that's been bad, and then given it in a way that's been good, and you see a huge difference in the motivation of your team.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. So I remember, the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. He does such a great job talking about how to give feedback. So you guys definitely, if you haven't, I'm sure, even if you read the book, pick it up again and reread it. If you are in that sales manager role, or even if you're not, if you have children, whatever, like if you're ever giving feedback to anyone, it's such a great book to have as a reference, because the way he positions it, it's like, oh my goodness, it makes complete sense. And
it does. So. And there's been more studies done by Harvard Business Review and such that are also coming out with new techniques on providing feedback, especially critical feedback, and different ways to be able to help people embrace the feedback. And that's some of what I like to stay on top of that stuff, so that I can share that with people. And, you also think about all your different types of salespeople. You've got your veteran, seasoned salespeople who've been doing it for years. And then you have some younger salespeople, or you have some millennials. Different people take feedback differently. So there's there's truly an art to coaching people. And that's part of what I try to do as well.
Very nice. Okay. So let's see. Number 6, our last point, which is to practice servant leadership.
Yep.
What is that?
So servant leadership, servant leadership is really funny, because it's quite different than what you might think. But, leadership is, of course, more than just a title. Leadership is really a way of thinking. That's the way I share this with people. And when you're sitting in a room, everybody knows who the leader is, who the boss is. It's very obvious, right? We have organizational charts, and we know. But the way I talk about it, and I'm sure you've heard this as well, there's a big difference between being a boss and being a leader. Mm-hmm. And the big difference is the way they think. And the big difference in that is a leader is not sitting there thinking that all these people work for me and they got to do what I tell them to do. Instead, they're really thinking, you know what? I work for them. I work for my people. If I can help my team be successful, setting them up for success, keeping them motivated, keeping some of the other powers that be from coming in and dumping on them, that's my job. That's what I mean by servant leadership. I'm serving my salespeople, who are then serving the customer, and then we serve the company. And so when you have that mindset, it totally changes how you go about communicating, and how you go about not just communicating, but providing feedback, by providing rewards, and it's and the leader allows their team to shine, as opposed to taking all the accolades themselves. So I talk a lot about practicing servant leadership and ensuring that the focus is on the team and the team's results, not the leader.
I think that is a very, very important point, and I don't think that many of the leaders get it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I agree, and I have to admit, these are the top things that I see in sales managers. There's a couple more too, but ultimately these are the tops, and and I've learned them through. Some of it has been through making mistakes. Some of it has been through having some great mentors. Some of it has been through watching great leaders or working for not so great leaders, and you learn, all these, from all different things. So over the last 30 years, I've kind of compiled a lot of this to say, what does it really take to build and lead I call it a rock star sales team. And these are 6 of the top elements.
love it. Love it. So thank you so much, Kathy. I really appreciate you sharing that with us.
You bet.
If somebody wanted to learn more about you or work with you, where could we find you? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Well, my email is ktuckercoaching@gmail.com. And I have various programs that I can share with them if they're interested. I have a program called 9 Steps to Leading a Rockstar Sales Team. And basically it covers a lot of this stuff and then a few more, and really gives them the tools that they can go ahead and implement right away. And it also, how we talked about coaching, I coach them on how to coach others, so I teach them a lot of the skills and give them a lot of the actual tools to help them help them be a more successful sales manager. And I'm seeing people already say, hey, I had my best month ever, and so it's really exciting to see that. And the other big thing is I see people coming to me who are so frustrated, and after a little bit of time working with me, now they feel like they have some direction and they have some ideas on what to do and how to do it. Then they start implementing it. They see that it works and they're like, wow, this is awesome. So, it's just really exciting. So they could just email me, let me know a little bit about what they're looking for, and I can send them some information. And I also have a Facebook group. It's called Peak Performance Leaders. And they can reach me on Facebook and join my Peak Performance Facebook group.
Awesome. And I know you do a lot of FaceTime,
I do.
The lives, so that's always nice to see. And where else do you hang out on social media? Are you on Instagram?
I'm on Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn, and of course I'm on Facebook.
Yep. Okay, great. So I'll link to all of those in the show notes. And Kathy, I hope, wish you best of luck. Thank you so much for all the information you provided to us today. You're always such a wealth of knowledge. And, hopefully I'll get to have you on the show in the future again.
Yeah, you bet. Well, I hope some of these ideas help your listeners, because, that's what it's all about. And if we can help our salespeople be more successful and help our builders be more successful, that's what we're here for.
Amen to that.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And thank you. Congratulations to you for your award, Anya.
Thank you. Thank you. It's not far. It's right here. I got to figure out a space for it. I need to put it on some kind of a pedestal.
You do. You need a special shelf just for it.
I need to figure out a spot for it. So my husband always jokes that it's no more than 3 feet away from me at all times.
Well, you deserve it. That's terrific.
I feel like I want to, an Emmy or something.
You did. A home building Emmy. That's what it is.
I know. It's funny. All right, cool. So we'll have you in the future, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Bye-bye, Anya.